Hello, I'm Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet, the greatest beard in esports entertainment, and today I'm going to talk to you about whether or not power creep is needed to sell magic cards to us, the consumer, those who consume the cards of magic. The magic card. This video, of course, is brought to you by channelfirewall.com. If you use the word Kenobi, capital letters, Kenobi code, at the checkout to pick up anything, whether it be Command Fest in a box through to other sealed product, you will help support the channel. And of course, the other sponsor of this channel is Ultra Pro, your #1 source for lovely ways to protect your collectible investments that we're about to talk about, including, and not limited to, the Saturn Tower. I will not shut up about the Saturn Tower. This is the reason I reached out to them. Right? This is why I have a relationship with Ultra Pro, because these are my favourite things to put commander decks into. Anyway, let's talk about expensive commander decks. The question I'm asking is power creep needed to sell booster packs? Okay? I'm coming at this conversation with at least a few assumptions. One of which is that companies need to make money, they need to make a profit, they need to appease shareholders. Appeasing shareholders is a phrase that I don't enjoy. Leaves a bitter taste in my mouth. Just going to wash that away actually with a cool, refreshing beverage. I really want to pull up another sponsored thing there, but unfortunately I'm not being sponsored by glasses of water. Also on this glass is a biscuit, a digestive biscuit. If you're American and you're going to call that a cookie, then you're fucking wrong. I'm 2 minutes into this recording and I've not even got slightly into my script. I am a class act. So the reason I'm coming off this assumption that they need to make money is because, well, under contemporary capitalism, that is basically how businesses and companies work. So I'm going to assume that for the whole video. Some of you out there might think that companies have to be altruistic or charitable, and that's just not the case under contemporary capitalism. That said, greed is not necessarily good. You can make profits without disregarding player experience, player feedback, or basically without fucking over the consumer. If you don't, you become like companies that have got horrible, shitty reputations, like EA, for example. Big AAA games companies that claim games are flops if they don't have record profits year on, year out. This reminds me of like when I used to write for a gaming website before I made the YouTube channel, and I wrote about how Square Enix did a public statement saying that both the Hitman, the first episode of Hitman I think it was, and the Tomb Raider remake, which is not 2013, fucking hell, I'm only 21, but those games were flops because they didn't make record profits. They made good money, they made profits, but not record profits. So Wizards of the Coast need to make money, they need to shift product, they need to make profit, they need to appease shareholders, etc, etc, etc. How do they do such a thing, I hear you ask? Did you ask that? I hope you did. Well, they sell things. The best way to make money, I guess, is to sell things, whether it be your products or your services. Now, their bread and butter, their core product is sealed magic cards. That's right, booster packs, these things. Not particularly these things, I don't know how long Fallen Empires have not been available. I should do a Fallen Empires opening video. Pack 1, pick 1, Fallen Empires. If you want to see that, comment down below. Engagement! But these are booster packs, and they bring me so much joy to hold in my hand sealed, to crack open, to fan through. As a Magic player, you must understand, you must appreciate just how great the sealed possibilities of a booster pack for limited play, for opening that bomb rare, for the memories of that set and that period in your life when you played it. Booster packs are fucking great. Regardless of whether or not they're borderline gambling, they are great. So these are their bread and butter. They have other things. They have art books and novels and t-shirts and shit like that. But I'm going to take a rather uneducated guess and assume that those things just make, what, 5-10% of their profit margins? And these things are much more valuable to them as a commodity that they can sell. Don't forget, these things also probably cost them very fucking little to produce. It's just some cardboard and a bit of plastic. So the overheads, the margins, those two words aren't interchangeable, are they? The margins they make on these things are probably going to be pretty good. Now, there is another revenue stream other than these boosters, which is, of course, Arena, the monetization of, what's the words I'm looking for? Cosmetics, and also just making the game game's economy a piece of shit to churn money out of you, like some sort of cow being milked, that's probably another, quite a large portion of the profit coming in now, and probably why we're seeing such changes towards, I don't know, saying fuck the paper game, for example. Now, why do they sell these things? Well, they sell them to us to draft, play sealed with, or just crack to look for the beautiful cards in between the plastic, the cards inside, those cards inside being the game pieces that we all play with. Now, it's important to note that whole idea of sealed and draft being one of the ways they can shift these fucking things is but a small fraction of the boosters they actually sell. They have said time and time again that casual kitchen table Magic is far more important to the sales of their game than any non-kitchen... That's perforated? Why is that perforated? To the non-casual crowds, the competitive crowds. It's really loose. Yeah, so the whole sealed draft thing isn't really the moneymaker. And the same can be said for Arena as well. Obviously, selling packs is an important thing. There's probably a lot of players, myself included as a content creator, but a lot of players who pick up the 50 booster bundle when the new set comes out to get the cards and the wild cards to play Arena Ladder. What I'm saying is that constructed Magic and chasing the rares within makes up a large driving force behind how they sell boosters. Of course, limited and constructed and Arena will sell in some way, but you have more of a chance of going infinite there as well, where some people just want to crack a shit ton of boosters and build the deck and play constructed. Why do people open boosters then? Well, it's for the cards inside. That's an obvious thing that we've obviously established, but it's for certain cards, right? It's chase cards and face cards, and sometimes those two things are one and the same. To clarify what a face card is the card that drives the set in terms of its visual identity, the theme, the flavour, the story. There is a literal article by Mark Rosewater when talking about Ultimate Masters that I'll link in the description below, where he talks about how a lot of the face cards for sets in the past, the ones that show up on booster packs, the ones that show up in art, and the ones that show up in the full spreads that in those things that we used to call magazines, you know, to advertise the game, those face cards were predominantly chosen for story purposes. They are, but essentially the characters that we can relate to and engage with on that kind of level. And you can see on the fronts of these boosters, we have one of the Kenriths, we have Urza, we have the words Fallen Empires, which is definitely the face card that I remember from that set. We have a Beast. We have, okay, some sets, older sets didn't use this as much. We have that fucking Angel from Ravnica that no one wants, but apparently Angels are popular with the casual crowd. And then we have, of course, Khan, Liberated of Trousers. Then you have the chase cards. Things like Uro. Uro, as an example, is nowhere to be seen on the packaging and advertisements for the set of Theros Beyond Death. He was almost certainly known to be a chase card. People wanted him. He's still $70 now. A card that people clamber for, crack packs for, want to play with, trade for, and buy on the secondary market. And why will people feel that way? Well, he's a chase card, but what does that mean? Well, often it's less the 5% casual appeal of things like Angels and Legendaries and Planeswalkers, and 95% of the time it's because they're playable in a competitive or constructed format, or at least collectible. Some cards, I guess, are less playable and more desirable for their rarity, but competitively playable is the main reason that you will chase these down. They'll be playable in your standard, Pioneer, Modern, Legacy, and to a lesser extent Vintage decks. And of course Commander has this effect too. It's not a competitive constructed environment, but people want their Oracles of Moldiah, which haven't been reprinted in fucking years. In short, the chase cards tend to be the constructed all-stars, and for the most part they're pushed and powerful. And whilst I'm differentiating face cards and chase cards, there are examples where they come together, and that's normally in the face Planeswalkers. The Planeswalkers that are designed to not only sell the set on a relatable story element, but also be incredibly pushed to the point of fucking the entire game up. In order of fucking the game up, in descending order, we have Liliana of the Veil, Jace the Mind Sculptor, and Oko, Thief of Crowns. God, it just makes me laugh thinking about this card. Oko is the most obvious and most egregious example of this in recent years. Barring Companion, this is the one thing that fucked up more formats than any other. Everything he touched, well, turned to elk, but also a steaming pile of shit. Brian Hawley said in his November 2019 article talking about the mistakes that R&D had made, or play design had made, was that the story is rooted in the fact that play design is and needs to be a design team, and not simply a playtesting team. So yeah, they missed some stuff about Oko apparently. The thing with this whole they're not a playtesting team thing, well, it's twofold really. One, they could have a playtesting team alongside it. This isn't a small independent developer developing Slay the Spire, which everyone should play. That game is fucking great. This is Wizards of the Coast, a subsidiary of Hasbro, one of the biggest, if not one of the big three, I think, toy companies in the world. working on one of the longest running, most prestigious and best selling card games in the world. This is not indie development. Just hire some fucking consultants. Get a couple of pros to glance over your portfolio and go, no, that card there, that'll break Black Lotus. And the second reason this is largely bollocks, or at least hard to swallow that they're not a playtest team, is that, well, I did an Oko video. A video about Oko, what went wrong. And I told the audience, go back and watch it. I'm quite proud of the video. I think it's pretty good, but I'm biased. But I said, I came into the video with the understanding or the impression that I was going to mock the audience and those saying that Oko was broken, how did they miss it, saying that no one saw it coming. But when I looked at the Twitter threads, the Twitter responses, and the Reddit threads, yeah, people saw it coming. Like the majority, the vast majority were like, whoa there. Are you okay? And then we come to Companion, which pushed the envelope so far, they broke the envelope. Many people, myself included, have praised the designers of Magic for pushing to the envelope, for innovating, and not letting the game become stale. The problem with Companion was that it was obviously fundamentally fucking broken from the outset. It was so obvious that people on Twitter were immediately going, Vince, isn't this broken like Legacy, Vintage, and so on and so on? People were saying, Lurrus looks good for D&T. And others were like, no, it just literally breaks Storm and Delver. It was so busted, so fucking busted, that some Yu-Gi-Oh players that only played one game of Magic in their life leaned over the cubicle wall, they passed the boundaries of fandom, and they leaned over and went, Wizards? Are you okay? So this isn't a case of things slipping by and being busted as fuck. Like, it's not. With the case of Oko, it was a chase card and a face card designed to sell the set, and therefore it was so fucking pushed. It did that, but it did huge amounts of damage to everything around it whilst doing so. Companion again gives a lot of chase rares, legendaries that play like commander cards, try and draw the commander players into Constructed. And all it did was reinforce the notion that 60 card Constructed is bollocks, and most people should stay playing Commander because it's safe. It literally did, as far as I understand from the anecdotal conversations I've had, it did more damage to trying to bridge that gap than it did to improve that relationship. It's funny because people will say to you, oh, I lived through Combo Winter back when people were using Tolarian Academies and Necropotences and Memory Jars. I'm not sure if that was all that Combo Winter, but those periods of Magic, I've lived through those. This is nothing. And to those people I say, that's fucking nonsense too, because although we've had hard periods, that original Milden with Affinity and Core Blade, for example, it's not quite like it is now, where we have regular, standard bans like Clockwork, where we go from like Hogaak's, we go from Eldrazi Spring, we had a bit of a break into Hogaak Summer, Renin 6 is still fucking up Legacy, Astrolabe is still ongoing, we'll be laughing about Astrolabe in 2 years time once it's gone from all the formats, only recently being banned in Modern, and if you're watching this video in the future, it's still legal in Legacy. Companion, Oko, fucking Thassa's Oracle, Underworld Breach, all this stuff, very, very pushed stuff that's obviously broken in older formats. And that's another thing, if you aren't going to test for older formats, okay, but that's two problems there. One, you push away your enfranchised players, and two, it's kind of fucking disrespectful to those enfranchised players. But the whole excuse that we don't test outside of standard, well, why the fuck do you keep breaking standard then? In short, power level and power creep is a way they hype up the game. Exciting, powerful rares will sell packs and make people crack packs and chase packs to get those cards to play with them in tournaments. Not so much now, at the moment, because, well, global pandemic and everything's on Arena, but I guess it still makes people crack packs on Arena. So power level and power hype and power creep definitely sells boosters. But is it needed to sell boosters? The game has gone through some ridiculous periods where things have been busted, but it's also gone through some periods where things are underpowered. And Magic has endured, and it has done very, very well over the years, hence why it's got to be this behemoth that it is today, without having power creep mean that things have to be banned out of standard every 5 fucking minutes. What I'm saying is that historically you don't have to push the envelope constantly or the power level up and up and up with things like fucking Uro and Questing Beast being word soup text boxes of War and Peace. You can actually just make a good game. Innistrad is one of my favourite sets to use as an example here. Evidently there are powerful cards in there. Snapcaster Lily and Delver of Secrets is hands down the most powerful one-drop they've ever printed. Like in a vacuum and in context of most sets and blocks and formats, Delver's really fucking good. But nothing was grotesquely broken. And if you repackaged that set and sold it tomorrow, people would chase the Snappies and the Lilies in it, so it's got reprint value, which is where I'm going with this whole conversation, but also the set is just good. Like having a good limited set, a fun limited set, a limited set that is not only a good limited set, but the flavour and theme, the art and the composition of the world itself, the world building was so good, and not a single card was so broken that it overshadowed it, that people look back on Innistrad with rose-tinted glasses. Ikoria could have been the best fucking set ever made in terms of flavour, theme, story, and like draft environment, but the companions overshadow it. That's right, you can have 3% to 4% of your set be broken, and it will fucking ruin the rest. Like spitting in an omelette. Wait, does spitting in an omelette ruin the rest of it? Nah, I'd still eat it. So this is where I come to my solution, kids. This is where I come to my solution. You can hype up things. You can get things exciting in two ways. One is an obvious thing. It's like make good magic. Now, that is an unfair thing for me to point out and go do that, because if we're honest, that's a hard thing to do, and I'm not saying the job of these people is easy. I'm saying that we need to stop purposely pushing the power level. An extra ability was stuck on Jace the Mind Sculptor before we went out the door. Broke him. Oko pushed and pushed because it's a face card. Broke him. They are evidently pushing the power level. They even said in the discussion around whether Oko was busted, they said they were pushing up power level into Throne of Eldraine. Yeah, you fucking are. That shows. That really shows. You can depower sets. Like, Theros was a downturn in power level during its time in Standard. And Theros, sure, the second and third blocks are not remembered as fondly because 3-block structure is a whole different discussion to have, but people love Theros, original Theros. Why? Well, it was flavourful, it was thematic, it was a new world that was exciting to explore and resonate with people because it picked the right sort of top-down design philosophy, but it also had incredibly powerful cards that weren't busted as fuck, from Polukranos through to Elspeth Sun's Champion. Very, very good, I will say, but not busted enough to ruin several formats. And then it had reprints, namely Thoughtseize. That's right, Thoughtseize got people excited for Theros. Mutavault got people excited for the core set after Theros, I believe. Recently, Grim Tutor, not going to hold its value, but it got people fucking hyped for the core set. Azusa, Crucible of Worlds. The thing is, when you reprint valuable cards into these formats, people get excited to play with them again in Standard, and you're going to get holder cards that are worth a fucking bomb. We have this history, this rich history of Magic, that Wizards is a little bit scared to taper into. They're getting better. They're getting better. The latest core set shows that they're getting better at managing reprints with Solemn Simulacrums and Azusa's and shit, but they could be better than they're doing already. And some people will argue they can't reprint everything because there's a thing called a reprint equity. They've run out of stuff to reprint, which I respond to that statement with, that's fucking bollocks. There are 350 cards in Magic worth $40 or upwards. I think that's not including the reserve list. I'll have to double check the search that one of my patrons did. Thanks, Naki, for doing some legwork here. And at $10 or more, 1,244 cards. Both of those searches on Scryfall, I will admit, include promos and shit, but you can reprint promos, you can reprint the art at the very least, or you can print old cards that are still popular, $10 card, stick it in a new frame, Bob's your uncle, fan is your aunt, it's now worth a fucking bomb on the secondary market, and people are excited. I'm not saying that reprints drive the hype as much as an Uro or an Oko will, but if you have good, powerful cards coming in that aren't breaking formats that are just good, plus this sort of stuff, you will have enough hype. The other great thing about reprinting shit is that it helps people access older formats. Having your moderns and your legacies, and to a lesser extent Commander, accessible allows people to get into those formats, and then that drives up the available equity. If people are playing a lot of modern, other modern staples go up in price, and then you can reprint them, bring them down, which is the Curse Look Like a Good Guy, people get to play cool modern games. It's basically a win-win for everyone. But instead of focusing on the reprint side of things, we're focusing quite heavily at the moment on the power creep. It's undeniable. I would like to see you comment down below and tell me if you disagree that power creep is dominating the design perspective of Magic at the moment. Because how can you argue otherwise? But I'd love to hear if you don't believe I'm right. And that brings me naturally to a close. I'm Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet. I believe power creep is dominating Magic's attempts at selling itself as a viable product, when in reality it can get by on the fact that it is one of the, if not the greatest game ever fucking made. And you've also got all these valuable like $10, $20 and $30 bills that when they go into packs they've reduced in value. Sure, they aren't $30 bills anymore, but people still want to fucking play with them. So get those cards into people's hands. And of course, the real one for those ones is fetch lands. People have been waiting for me to say it in this video. I'm sick and tired of fucking saying it. It makes me physically, like, just frustrated, pissed off, angry to keep saying it. Because Wizards of the Coast don't give a fucking shit about Legacy or Modern. Or if they do, if individuals at the company do, as a whole, as a corporate collective, they don't give a fuck. Otherwise, they'll be making these lands accessible. So yeah, there you go. That's my monthly update on how I feel about fetch lands. Pissed off. Let's try and enjoy Magic in spite of the power creep. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section down below if you do agree, disagree, or think I've missed something or I've misrepresented something. I'm always looking to have a conversation to learn and change my perspective, like I did in the whole Splinter Twin thing, because Teferi probably makes Splinter Twin busted, because Teferi's power crept, and yeah, power creep. I'll see you soon. Ta-ta for now.